So in the NA literature, it talks about the disease of addiction being progressive, incurable, and fatal. And I hadn't thought a whole lot about the progressive part for a really long time, but then someone at a meeting recently made the argument that the disease is progressive even when we're in recovery and abstinent from substances. And I thought about it and I said, this is just absolute nonsense. I agree with the idea of a disease because it distinguishes these set of behaviors from simply being having what we call moral deficiency. But this idea that somehow there's this magical evil essence or part of us that just continues to get worse over time is kind of ridiculous. I mean, the whole concept, I think the way that it was talked about comes out of like what is pretty much mostly been moved on past in terms of psychological theories. So I think there's some like half-baked Freudianism or even like Jungian complex type thinking that was behind this, either directly or indirectly, when it was written in the NA literature. But the current psychological community doesn't really traffic in that stuff to the same extent anymore. Even if we accept this idea that we call the disease like a bunch of semi-conscious patterns and destructive impulses that we kind of, for the sake of reference, we call one thing. This idea that it is somehow independent of all the recovery work you do and all the changes and advances and growth as a human being, that this mass of negativity just not only stays the same, but gets worse. And I thought about it and I could only come to one conclusion, that maybe this is true, but it's true for people that don't actually do work on themselves, who actually have unhealed trauma. And in a defense, sometimes the 12 steps aren't enough to heal this trauma. But I just totally disagree that you can't heal the part of you that is diseased. Like we talk about lack of ease, like the part of us that was definitely implicated in the use and the continuing use of drugs, all the dynamics underneath all of our behaviors. The idea that this is just going to stay the same or worse, get worse over time, totally independent of any kind of work we do on ourselves. This is just baseless, and it doesn't jive with my experience. It doesn't jive with my observation of other people in recovery. I think it's one of these things that is like pure nonsense that needs to be revisited. Thank you for letting me share.